Welcome to the Voice of Counseling, presented by the American Counseling Association. This program is hosted by Dr. S. Kent Butler. This week's episode is titled Counseling Women Trailblazers, Part 2, and features Dr. Thelma Daley.
Welcome to the Voice of Counseling from American Counseling Association. My name is Dr. S. Kent Butler, and joining me today is Dr. Thelma Daley. Thelma is a social activist, a counselor, and a past president of the American Counseling Association. Today, we're exploring counseling women trailblazers. And Dr. Daley, without question, one of the earliest and finest counseling women trailblazers that we know. And so I want to welcome you. How are you today, Dr. Daley?
Well, Mr. President, I am just fine. How are you?
You know, I'm living a pretty interesting life right now, dealing with the first month of this presidency and dealing with just how life has kind of rolled itself out. But I'm having fun. We are having the opportunity to tape these podcasts, these vodcasts, to share with the counseling community all the greatness that there is. And one of the things that I've always been really excited about in going to conferences and being there and watching people was to see you and get to know you and to get my hug. And so
Send you a social distance hug.
social distance hug.
House like that. You know, we do this.
Yes.
We do
Yes.
that. We do that.
No worries at all.
Well,
So,
wait a minute. I have a question for you. How
okay.
does it feel to be the president of the largest counseling association in the whole world?
You know, I didn't think about it until like maybe a day before it was all to be, and I realized I think I was sitting around and I was like, "Wow, you are the president of the American Counseling Association," and so I think that now I just take it in stride because it's just about getting the work done, and I try not to let it go any further than that. I just want it to be the work that I've been doing all along, now in a different position, right? And I'm trying to use my voice better and use my voice more, and I'm trying to hopefully inspire those who I'm working with, especially those on the governing council and those who I have immediate access to in this role, to kind of help change some things. Because my moniker, or the thing that I'm looking to do this year, is to shake it up a bit and really help to tap some other people into leadership. I feel as though, especially for African American males, this is the second person in this seat since 20 years ago when Dr. Courtland Lee was here. So I'm looking to make some changes in that as well, to help my brothers and sisters across the counseling community be a part of what we're doing here and to have a voice at the table.
That's great. That's wonderful. That's great. Yes.
So,
I love my association and I love the counseling field. I just think it's so wonderful. I think it undergirds so many other professions, and
yes.
there are so many wonderful people in the field, really. And it's so great when you're around all of the counselors.
You know, one of the things that you are known for is your mentorship. And you have done some phenomenal things with regards to when you meet people, when people come to you and they ask you questions, especially at conferences and things, you always are free flowing and giving of yourself. What's that all about? What is it about your nature in terms of giving back to younger people coming forward?
I don't know. You're telling me some things I don't know. It's just Thelma. It's just plain me. And I always tell people I'm very candid. What you see is what you get.
Yes.
Whatever that authentic bone is or whatever it is there, I don't change that much or whatever. I enjoy teaching or sharing. I think that unless you share what you have, what good is it? So my whole philosophy is sharing. And, you know, I my long-term job was really working in Baltimore County schools, where I directed the counseling program for 150 schools. Baltimore County is the horseshoe around the city.
Right.
We kind of felt we had the best counseling service in the whole country. That's the feeling. And I think if you talk to some of those counselors now, and I stay in contact with them, they kind of feel they had the best, they had the best, they had the best. You know, that was kind of the feeling that they had, because they were the best. They were the best, okay? So whatever, you know, and I think in terms of my Loyola students, that they were the best. Some of them are out there now. Some of them have been on the board for ACA. But you didn't want me to say that. You wanted me to say something else. What is
No,
it?
no, no. I mean, I want to tap into all of that. You know, how you got started in the fields, and so that's beautiful. You started off in the schools and doing that work. How did you find the leader within you during all that?
I don't know how I found the leader. I can go back to elementary school, and I think that I was always the, you know, I can remember in elementary school, particularly in grades maybe 4 and 5, before we really had the middle schools, because we used to go from elementary school on into now, you know, was junior high school, but not the middle school like that. But I know I was always the one with knew a new poem on the end of the week and could recite a poem, or not maybe the first to raise your hand, but maybe the second to raise a hand, because I didn't want to stick out there. But I don't know what to, I guess it came from my parents and my grandparents. And, you know, I guess that was a part of it. But in the counseling field, I've been in the counseling field, I would say, all my life, because I finished college at age 19 and went right on for my master's program at New York University in the field of counseling. I love the field of counseling.
Yes.
I would say for the American Counseling Association, from the time I joined the association, which seems like eons ago, I've only missed one convention, but I was also registered for that convention.
Wow.
And I only missed that convention because it was in Las Vegas, and the airlines were going on strike, American Airlines. When I got there, I said to the agent, I said, if I need to come back real fast, could I? I said, my father is very ill. And he said, don't go. I said, what? He kept saying, don't go. And my bags had been checked and my husband had gone home. He said, don't go. And I said, okay, don't go then, get my luggage. And I didn't go. That was the only one I missed. And a couple of days later, my father did die. But that was the only convention in all of my life in counseling, only convention I've ever missed. So wow. I went there, so, you know, and
that's a very powerful story in and of itself. This person saw something in that moment that you were there when your father passed.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Because of the agent behind the counter for American Airlines.
Right.
Yes.
So it gives us something to think differently about American Airlines for when we're
drunk.
Definitely that. So I can see that in you, that you have been a leader all of your life. You've done some phenomenal things in the counseling field. You were the very first African-American woman, Black woman, to be president of ACA. What was that journey like, to be in leadership during that time?
Well, you know, I was president of ASCA.
Yes. First.
And during the time, I was president of ASCA, let me get my dates straight, 71, 72. Our association really wasn't mixed at all. Our association was basically a white male association. I never ran. I never thought I would be president of ASCA or APGA or ACA, but I wasn't the one pushing me. There were the people out there, and they were all not African Americans. They were all white people pushing me. So
Right.
I get this out there to be president of ASCA. And then the ASCA people pushed me to be president of APGA, which became ACA. And I said, no, not me. And they said, yes, you. And I said, no, not me. And they said, yes, you. And the first year I ran, I didn't win.
Okay.
But they thought, everybody I met said, you must have won. And I said, but no, I didn't win. But it was a close race. And they said, you will run again. I said, I will. They said, you will. And so they pushed me. So what I really did at that time was to break the barriers for women.
Yes.
Women were not moving through. And I don't want them to think I'm an ancient something.
No, you're not.
You know. And so it was the same thing in ASCA, and it was the same thing in APGA, ACA. I have to tell you, the board I chaired for this association was made up of all white males and one white woman. Okay. And that was the board that I chaired.
Okay.
Which is so different today.
Yes. How many members were on the board back then?
I can't remember. It was a big board, and
it was big then too, because we got 25 voting members now. So
yeah, it was a large board, but it was made up of, most of the men were university professors, Southern University professors. But I always did my homework.
Okay.
President Butler, I've always been strong in parliamentary procedures and so forth. And so I knew, because my parents had always said it, my teachers all the way through had always, you always have to be better. You always have to be better. You know, kind of know that story, right?
Yes.
Yes, you always have to be better. So I was better, because I must have been better, because in ACA, you know, I don't know an entity. I chaired the foundation, I chaired insurance trust. I was the first secretary treasurer of the National Board for Certified Counselors.
Okay.
I've been parliamentarian and treasurer, all of those things. I guess what I haven't done is that I've worked with some of the publishing companies, but people keep saying, when are you going to do your book? When are you going to do your book? I haven't had time because I've been helping other people.
Well, we got to get that book out there. Maybe it's the autobiography of Dr. Thelma Daley.
Yeah, I know. But when I look at today, how we are, and I want to go back for some history for ACA.
Okay, sure.
Because I did go and pull out my files, and I said, oh yeah, we are fighting today for social justice and for legislation. And I just want to go back to say, Chuck Lewis was the executive director. They call it president, executive director, something during that time. He was from Penn State. And Joe McDonough is a name that you hear in history. He was the vice during that time. He emerged later to become the executive director of ACA. Mm-hmm. But one of the things was the ESA, the Elementary Secondary Education Act. And believe it or not, when I back to Paul, I said, well, no, look who was fighting against us, because there was a whole section in there to give money to the SEAs and the LEAs, the state educational associations and the local for career development and counseling and guidance. And there were two organizations fighting to get that out of the amendments.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't believe who they were. The ones we buy materials from. It was the Association for Education, Community, and Technology, and it was the National Audio Visual Association.
Wow.
So I just want to say that through the history, the association has been out there working for legislation.
Yes, that's powerful. That's a good lesson to learn, and why we need to be doing that. So, I mean, when you talk about that, as counselors, we need to be on the forefront, making sure that we are doing the things that are necessary to make sure that the wellness of our clients is seen throughout, not just in their own lives, but in their communities and in the states and in this country in which they live in. So what was that value like? What do you think is the importance of thinking outside of just that counseling room and that space that you're in with the client?
You have to look at the whole environment, because look at where your clients live in the world.
Yes.
And you have to be an advocate. You have to be a real advocate. And you have to be an advocate for social justice. You have to be an advocate for people. And the skills we have to give those skills to the world. Okay. But we also have to coalesce people.
Yes.
We can't, as Gil Wren said, the encapsulated counselor, you can't live in a little bubble or a little hub. You yourself have to break out of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And you mentored that for so many people in terms of your role model and how you kind of lend yourself to that movement. What is your message to younger generations coming through now in counseling to give them that fire? Because I'm listening to you and I'm watching you, and that fire is still there. How do we get that ignited in counselors of today? Students who are matriculating right now in counselor ed programs.
Professors, we are professors, whatever that means, professors. And so, but I would say we have to also break out of our cloaks. Okay, if we are going to inspire others, we cannot be staid and whatever, because it's a total world out there, President Butler. And as we also, our clients are so diverse today. And I think the Olympics, we're in this period now where the Olympics are going on. I think the Olympics have brought mental health to the forefront.
Yes.
Really to the forefront, really. And that's enhancing the role of the counseling field so much there. Right. And that also leads us to other avenues in which we have to be present in other avenues.
Right.
I want to go back to say something too, because you're here as a very astute, handsome African-American, successful leader. And you also, I believe, was president of the Multicultural Association. I want to go back and tell you something about history because you have to be at the table. I want to get that across. You have to be at the table. Very few persons who look like you and look like me were at the table in ACA. Luckily, I was there because I'd gone through ASCA, and I can remember being in, we used to have big assemblies with I guess 2 from every state there. But in Atlantic City in 1971, and I believe Gary Walsh was the president-elect, and I was there with ASCA, and someone tapped me on my shoulder wearing a dashiki.
Ooh, I think I know who that was.
He said, "Can you get me the floor?" I'd never seen the person before. And I said, "Yes, I'll get you the floor." I moved to the mic and they recognized me, and I said, "I give the floor to Dr. Willie Williams."
Okay.
That was the first voice on the floor for diversity in the APGA, ACA history. And that led to the formation later steps to get the Association for Non-White Concerns. Wow. And all of the others. You see, I didn't want that to be lost. I wanted that to, and I didn't know who this, I knew later that it was Dr. Willie Williams, who had been a part of the Black psychologists and all. Right. Yeah. All of the other people were in a room somewhere in Atlantic City, Dr. Sam and all, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yes, Sam Johnson.
Sam Johnson and all in a room. But luckily, because others had pushed me when I didn't think I could do it, right. I was at the table. And I want to get the word out there. Someone always has to be at the table, even if people have to pull up an extra chair.
Yes.
Somebody has to be at the table to open the door for others.
For others.
And I think part of my history is I opened the door for diversity in the association, whether it was gender diversity, whatever, racial diversity, whatever. Because also, I think I told one of your staff members this yesterday that when the gay and lesbian group started, and our friend Joe out of New York wanted a workshop, and some of the higher ups, not say higher ups, but some of the staff people said, no, we cannot have a workshop on this. I said, oh, yes, you will. You will have it.
You will have it.
And we did have it. And yes, and I went around to this, you did have it. So you got to have somebody at the table. You have to keep the door open, and you can't be quiet. You can't sit at the table and be mom just because you're at the table. That's I want to get.
You can't, right. You can't become complacent. You have to continue this fight. And it goes back to what you said earlier. You know, you always have to be the best. Your parents told you. My parents told me you always had to be the best in order to be seen, heard, and to be valued in spaces where you have a right to be. And so, you know, when you bring others on, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you because of what you've done and what you've inspired, not only in me, but you've always pushed me. You never let me take the easy road. You were like, you were in my face, not negatively. You were in my face saying, this is going to be, and you should be doing this, and you should be proud of who you are and all those other things. You always lifted me, and even when you didn't even know me, as you were getting to know who I was, you lifted me, and I just appreciate you. And there's such a respect that you give. You know, even in challenging me, you've always respected me, and I think that's who I see you as a leader and as a person who has paved the way. You are definitely our trailblazer. And people recognize that. And I hope that you see the respect that people give back to you because of all the things that you kind of laid out for us moving forward. When you think about perhaps the things that you have done, what are you the most proud of?
I don't know. I'm proud of all of you. I'm proud of all of you, really. And I'm proud to see the association moving now in such a wonderful way, you know, going on and bursting out and doing all of those things. And I'm very proud of the people in Baltimore County, which was my long term. And even though I worked at Loyola and all of that, the counselors set up, I did a lot of professional development, brought in a lot of people, but they do a summer institute each summer for about a week. And they called it the Dr. Thelma Daley Summer Institute. And I would think that they named something to go on in Baltimore County. Is a very large school system.
Right.
The carry on in Summer Institute in my name.
Your legacy.
I just think that's, gee whiz, that touched, that whatever. I don't know what I'm proud of. I never think of what I'm proud of. But I want to tell you something else.
Yes.
I don't know how much time you have, but I want to tell you something else.
Okay.
Never realized I just talked to Gordon McMinn out in Oregon yesterday. He was treasurer for ACA a couple of times, and he was also on the board. But then he reminded me of something I did for Aspen. I said, oh, think about that. But let me tell you about a couple things, because I was also president of Delta Sigma Theta sorority the same time I was president of the American Council Association.
Oh, wow. So what was that experience like?
It was wonderful because one enhanced the other.
Okay.
Because, you know, as president, the ACA buys some of your time from your employer.
Right.
So that you get some free time to travel and do. So whenever I travel for all of those speeches and conferences for the Counseling Association. I could also meet with the Deltas in the evenings and so forth. But I want to tell you a couple things there.
Okay.
My convention was in Chicago. And you know, the big conglomeration publishing company, Ebony Magazine, was in Chicago.
Yes.
And so even though Ebony is not flourishing today, President Johnson of Ebony, founder of Ebony, knew I was there and invited the whole board over. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And had them explore the place, dine them with wine and steak and told them, and they've never gotten over that. And then we were also in a meeting in New Orleans, and the Deltas knew I was there. And they said, one lady opened up her house and she said, I'm going to have some guests in. You may bring some people from your board.
Yes.
And I invited members from the board to go. And what they said to me later, the board people,
yes,
that was the first time they had ever been in a home of an African American.
Wow.
So without realizing it, you were bringing together this mixed world.
You allow them to be able to see that the world doesn't have to be that different. I mean, you know, they were able to come into a home that they may have not have been able to be a part of before, or didn't think to go to before, because they thought that there had to be some separation there. When you talk about the Deltas, one of the things that I'm always fond of is you have a good friend and a colleague of mine here at the University of Central Florida, and Dr. Martha Lou Stewart.
Yes,
who,
I know her, yes.
Yeah, she came up to me. She's retiring this year.
Oh, give her my congratulations.
Yes, I will. And she came up to me and told me, I met somebody that you know very well. And she kind of made the introduction because of the Delta's connection. And that's the beauty, right? So we meet in various circles, and the world is small because of the things that we're able to do and the things that are happening. And so I'm glad that we have both those connections, because it kept me in touch with you, even when we weren't doing things for the Counseling Association.
Well, I just want to wish you the very best in your role. And I just want you to know that you're in the best profession in the whole world.
At this time, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk some more with Dr. Thelma Daley.
Counselors help positively impact lives by providing support, wellness, treatment. We're working to change lives. We are creating a world where every person has access to the quality, professional counseling, and mental health services needed to thrive.
So you had an opportunity, Dr. Daley, to talk about your experiences as a president of both organizations. Can you kind of also talk a little bit about your experiences as a graduate student and as a new professional? What was that like for you moving forward, and how might that be similar to what students are going through in this present day?
You mean when I was in the graduate program at New York University?
Yes.
Oh, what was it like for me? Just wonderful, because I love my professors and I love the experience there. But I also love New York, because that brought a new experience for me, and New York University's downtown in Washington Square. I had gone through segregate. In fact, New York University was my first experience in going to an integrated school setting.
Okay.
Because I had gone through segregated schools, elementary, high school, college.
Wow.
All right. So, but I found that so exciting that this wonderful, diverse world is here and so forth. I was very fortunate that my professors were good mentors too. One of my professors, because also I had the experience early in my life to testify in Congress, invited to testify. Carl McDaniel spotted me at a conference in Minneapolis, and my supervisor was with me and said, I want you to testify. And it was the National Defense Education Act, where we got all of this money to go study. So even after I finished New York University, I went back for an intense 6 weeks, all day long. And my professor had all of us out of his house out in Long Island. So that was also mentoring. That was also saying what else counseling is and what people should be.
Okay.
Some of that rubbed off to me, very interestingly, that the NVGA, National Career Development Association, had invited me to speak at Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
And who was in the audience but my former professor, who at that time now was Dean of Rutgers. He and his wife were there. And here I was speaking and he was in the audience, you know. But he too had mentored me.
Mm-hmm.
I think mentoring is, well, modeling. You know, mentoring is also a form of modeling.
Right.
They see you how you carry yourself, what you say and how you do. You don't have to say exactly, I'm mentoring you, but just what you do, you are mentoring. Okay?
Right, exactly.
And I think that whole program, I don't know if we still have it, the new, whatever we used to have it, the newcomers or something, we would meet with the new people. And
Right. Newcomers, yeah, at the ACA conference. Uh-huh.
are we still doing that? I mean,
Yes.
that was
Well, we haven't had conferences for 2 years yet, but there is the newcomers breakfast or something along those lines. I believe that's still happening.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Where they get I know that the president goes and they kind of speak to inviting the new members or new students to the profession and helping them to kind of navigate what the conference is like, and they go through the conference program and share with them, you know, what it is that the conference is all about, what meetings they should go to, what receptions they might want to go to, and just all the ins and outs of the actual conference experience.
But I just think, and I'm going to put the word modeling, because even when you speak to people, and if you're the speaker and you're so haughty that nobody can touch you, then you're not modeling it. And
Right.
you really have to be congruent with your words.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. So there has been some African American and one Latinx woman who followed in your footsteps in terms of presidency of ACA. Who was the next person of color that was a president after you, female?
Well, it took 20 years for somebody to follow me, and that was Cortland, I believe, right?
Okay.
And then
Portland was the male. Okay.
And then Beverly came.
And then Beverly after him.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that was it. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, and every one of them that I know who has taken on the leadership of the organization has paid homage to you for paving the way, and you have been, again, a role model and a mentor for them as well. What were some of the things that you have said? Can you think back to even some of the things that you've said to me? Because like you, I didn't win the first time. And I remember you saying to me also, you know, that's okay. And you shared with me at that time that you hadn't won the first time. And so you encouraged me to continue to stay in the race, and that my voice was needed. What are some of the things or the lessons that you want to share with maybe leaders who are coming in our pathway that what do they need to know about being a leader, not just for ACA, but just a leader in general?
Well, first of all, know yourself. And also humility is a big part. Humility.
Okay.
Don't. My daddy had a little ugly picture of me being so ugly. I think my mother had just washed my hair or something, but he kept that little picture, and he was surprised. I said, "Dad, why you pull that picture?" And he said, If you ever think you're getting too big for your shoes, look at this little picture here. He was keeping me grounded, and
Grounded.
I can still see that little picture there. You have to stay grounded, but you also have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, but you can't do it alone.
Nice.
I mean, you always have to link, 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 link. I looked at the gymnastics team this morning. They were in the Rockefeller Plaza there, but they were all together. They have come out as a team. And don't forget that there are others. You can't do it alone. And don't discard people, okay? Because I've seen people go up the ladder. Here I am now, they're with me. Then they get up the ladder, they don't want to be with me. Then they get to this level, they don't want to be there. They're always climbing. Well, you must watch the rungs on your ladder. Not all of them might be so nailed that they will stay there. You have to carry people with you, and don't discard people is what I would say. Don't discard people, but believe in yourself. But you also have to always keep refurbishing.
Refurbishing, yeah. You got to stay new. You got to refresh.
You got to keep refurbishing. You got to keep refurbishing. And I always say that age is not measured in terms of chronological age. It is measured in terms of your functional age. Okay? And for your functional age to be relevant, you got to keep refurbishing, learning and learning and learning, and being involved with people. People spur you on.
That's such a great lesson.
And the more you give, the more will come back to you. The more you give in an unselfish, altruistic way, come bouncing right back to you.
Right back to you.
To know it. Yes.
That's phenomenal. So I can imagine, and I know this has happened to me, and I don't want to bring a negativity to this, but I can imagine that people haven't always been in your corner and have not treated you well. How have you responded in those situations?
Oh, I've been strong because I've heard them whisper. It's very interesting. I couldn't be president of my state. I was president of APGA, ACA before I could be president of my state association. I came back to Maryland to be president of the state association, okay? I heard once the former, I was very new in the field, but the former executive director, when I was running for an office and for the counseling office in Baltimore County against a male, and the executive director had been invited, he said, I don't think they're ready for her at this time. I heard that statement.
Yes.
I knew what it meant. I knew what it meant there. But I have been shielded from life. My parents, my mother and my father and my grandparents were all strong people. I have to tell you, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother was president of the PTA for 25 years.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, think about that. But you also have to shield yourself and believe in yourself, because it's not always going to be easy. But just know where you're going, map your path and stay in your path, and don't let the vampires or the snakes or whatever get you. Shield yourself, but also find the places there where others will boost you and where you can be, because the world is so big.
Yes, I love that. That's such a lesson. That is such a lesson, because the world can be trying.
Yes.
And especially when you're trying to kind of bring equity to the table. And, I think one of the messages that I have is that I want people to recognize that this is not about me trying to come and take away from you.
Yes.
It's about me coming and finding my own space and my own place and having my own. And so many times people think that when somebody is trying to have equity or a place at the table, that it's coming at their expense. And that's never been the case. And I hear that in your voice right now, that, you're standing strong and proud in who you are because you believe you have a right to be there. not because you believe you're taking somebody else's spot away.
No, I'm not taking anybody else's spot away. I'm linking arms with you.
Yeah,
Okay? I'm linking arms with you.
that's so
But
powerful.
you see me as a strong human being. Okay. And together, you have something to offer, and you have something to offer. Bring it all together. I want to go back to Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who founded, Bethune-Cookman
Right.
University now. But she said, I put up one finger, and it wouldn't hurt too much. I put up two, not so much. But if I put up my fist here, it's a force.
Yes.
And if I come together, not as one person, but if I come together as a whole team, look at the force here. Look at the force here. Look at the force here.
Wow.
Look at the force here. Okay?
Wow. Yes.
Yeah, it's not just one. I can't do so much with one.
Right.
Not, a little bit more of two, but not that much. But look at together and the power. Look at that in terms of how strong our organization is now, because we have brought together all of these. Well, look at the divisions. You call them divisions, but they represent the world. And when you go through ACA now, I see the Native Americans. I see the people who are not afraid to say that I'm a lesbian or I'm gay or I'm whatever. Okay, I have to go to our past president, Arredondo, who was the first Latino president in our association. Look at where we are in
Yes.
terms of this, okay?
Yes.
It's a beautiful, beautiful world that we could relate to a garden growing or whatever it is, the wonders of the world.
Right. And why are we fearful of it? We shouldn't be. We should embrace it.
We are fearful. Yeah, we should embrace it. But we are also so fearful when we are inferior. The more inferior we are, the more fearful we are.
Wow.
When we are sure of ourselves and know where we want to go, we do not fear that much. But if
Dr. Daley, I can tell you that you have just dropped so much knowledge. The mic has dropped. Everything has come from you in terms of this time together. How phenomenal that word is coming from you in terms of, and it's so real. That's the passion that you have. That's the gift that you have for our society and for our counseling community for sure, is to listen to what you just said and how you just kind of beautifully just stated that it's together. It's together that we can do this. It's not singular. We need to see each other and for who we are. And so such powerful lessons. I mean, I'm sitting here with goosebumps because of what you've just shared. And I always hear from you. I mean, that's the gift of listening to our mentors and the people who have gone before us, because you've paved the way. Are there other things that you want to share, other knowledge tidbits that you want to drop? Because I'm telling you, I'm so inspired just listening to you.
No, I don't know if I have any tidbits. You're telling me what I do. I'm just playing Thelma. But
There you go.
Even if I look at the board, the ACA board, the governing council, sometimes people come on because they've been elected from a division or from a branch. And it's the same thing. Well, when I come on that board, I'm on the national board. I'm not I may have been elected from this, but we are board. And that's the same thing. I want to go back to the governance there.
Yeah.
That's another thing there. I always say that I think about the fact that because we've always had a big yard, and my late husband always liked to work in the yard and the garden, and I always think about the fact that, there's a time of the year when you have to prune all of your shrubbery, and you have to prune. And I think that we have to prune when we come to the governing council. We have to prune our minds so that we can grow back more fully. Okay.
Yes.
I know how the gardener would come there and he said, I'm gonna cut down all of your hydrangeas. I said, you're gonna cut them all down? He said, yes. And then he would come back the next spring. He said, see, didn't I tell you how beautiful they are? And so I just want to say every now and then, all of us have to prune ourselves, get rid of the dead shrubberies and so forth, so that we can blossom more fully than we ever thought we would blossom. Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's a lesson. You are and will always be the phenomenal Dr. Thelma Daley. When I think of the poem that Maya Angelou put forward, "Phenomenal Woman," in your grace, in your ability to kind of share who you are, unabashedly vibrant, you send a message to so many people, and it's again so many people across many intersectionalities. It's not even just Black women. Your message resonates because, like you said, it's who you are, and the fact that you believe in yourself. And I'm sitting here getting strength and believing in myself because of the words that you are able to share. And I know that you've gone through more than I've gone through. You've paved the way so that I can have an easier pathway, and that's part of your legacy. Part of your legacy is that you took the bumps and the bruises early on when we weren't at the table, when we didn't have access to the table, and you paved a beautiful way for us to be able to follow through. And I'm flabbergasted that I get to know you, and that you get to be a part of what I hope to be my legacy, because I want to grow and learn from you. And as I've said to other leaders who have been my mentors, I stand on your shoulders, not to break you down, but to continue moving forward the legacy that you have started. And so, Dr. Thelma Daley, I want to give you your flowers for all the things that you have done and for being my friend. And I can't wait to be with you and to get that hug the next time that we're together. So we got my little virtual hug right now, but I'm anticipating the real one, perhaps come next April in Atlanta. So thank you so much.
Well, you had boosted me. I am just Thelma. I'm just plain Thelma. And I just want to say, you bring so much power, you bring so much dignity, and you are a role model. And I wish you the very best in your journey. The journey goes on and on and on. The journey goes on and on and on.
Not just us, right? It goes on.
It goes on, and there are many, many people along the way. Many people along the way. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, as we come to an end, I just again want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here to share with the counseling community. Your words matter. They make you made it so explicit and so clear, and I just want to thank you. So, from the American Counseling Association, I'm Dr. S. Kent Butler. Thank you for joining us today for our podcast, our Vodcast, I should say, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
ACA provides these podcasts solely for informational and educational purposes. Opinions expressed in these podcasts do not necessarily reflect the view of ACA. ACA is not responsible for the consequences of any decisions or actions taken in reliance upon or as a result of the information and resources provided in this program. This program is copyright 2021 by the American Counseling Association. All rights reserved.